Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mike. You guys are rocking with me on Mike's Intellectual Corner. On today's episode, we're going to be diving back into Vsauce, of course. And without further ado, this is Our Little Slice, and we're just going to dive right into it. Let's go.
Hey, Vsauce! Michael here. This picture is about a year and a half old, but the pyramids themselves are much older than that. How much older? Well, think of it this way. The pyramids of Giza were as old to the ancient Romans as the ancient Romans are to us.
Yeah, because I mean, think about it. The pyramids were built in, I think, the year 2560 BC. 2560 BC, that's like 4,500 years ago. That's insane to think about. But what's even crazier, because I don't know if he'll mention it, but what's even crazier is the very first pyramids that started popping up were built, I think, 100 years before that. Like the Bent Pyramid is like 4,600 years old. Like it's ridiculous to think about how old those things were. Because
when the pyramids were being built, there were woolly mammoths living on Wrangel Island. That's pretty old. But don't get too impressed. We often learn about the past in units, separate chapters, which distracts from the fact that many chapters aren't just nearer each other than you might think, they are often literally written on top of one another. Anne Frank and Martin Luther King Jr. were born in the exact same year.
yeah, if you guys have been viewing my Today in History shorts, that's like all over the place in there. Like noticed while doing my research on those, like it's literally like you'll have one major event happening like maybe only a few months, before, or a few years before another major event. It's like, damn, these things happen like so close together. It's ridiculous.
Were born in the exact same year. By the late 1960s, humans had come a long way. We had become a spacefaring species. But while we were sending the first probes to the moon and Venus and Mars, it was still illegal for a black person and a white person to marry in 16 states.
Which is crazy too, because I mean, if you think about it, that means that we also sent a man to the moon at the very same time that we were, like, I think in the middle of Vietnam. Like, not even close to the end, like, in the middle of Vietnam, we sent men to the moon. That's kind of crazy to think about.
To marry in 16 states. The guillotine seems like a macabre artifact from bygone days, but it was last used by France to officially behead a criminal the year Star Wars came out.
Yeah, and sorry I'm pausing this. I like to be able to talk through a Vsauce video like I'm actually having a conversation, because it's kind of fun to do that. Sorry if I'm the only one who feels that way, but and I actually did a short on that too, because I remember that was a Tunisian man who was convicted of killing a woman. He was the very last, I believe he was the very last person to get beheaded by a guillotine in France illegally, which is crazy to think about.
Star Wars came out. While General Custer was fighting native tribes on the American frontier, the Brooklyn Bridge was being built. And there were people alive then who would later watch the moon landing on television. We went from Custer's last stand to Armstrong's first steps within the span of a single human life. But
I mean, if you think about it, think about this. If a person was born or if a European was born in the 90s to late 1880s, that person was most likely alive to go through World War I, go through the Spanish flu, World War II, the Great Depression. And if they were super unlucky, like say if they were in the German army and they were caught and captured out east, then they were most likely like just ended their days at a gulag, which is crazy to think about. They survived all that just to be forgotten about in some far-flung gulag out in the Siberian front. Crazy to think about.
But all of these stories, from the pyramids to Julius Caesar to you watching this video right now, belong to an incredibly thin section in the book of human history. Compared to what human life has mainly been like here on Earth, our current societies are weird. Weird is also an acronym used.
My thing is, society is pretty weird when you think about it. Because, I mean, the way that we put such a high definition on, like, skin color and stuff, where, you know, our ancestors, like, way before the 1500s, 1400s, they didn't care about that. Like, skin color to them was as mundane as and menial as eye color or hair color. Like, who cares? You know what I'm saying? Feels like we're living in a Star Trek episode, kind of like this is a weird alien land, and for some reason skin color matters for some reason. I don't know.
Is also an acronym used by Jared Diamond in his new book, The World Until Yesterday. Jared Diamond wrote Guns, Germs, and Steel, Collapse, and he's here with me to talk about weird.
WEIRD, W-E-I-R-D, is an acronym for Western, Educated, Industrial, Rich, and Democratic. When we talk about human nature, we're really talking about a narrow slice of society. Traditional societies were everybody in the world from the beginning of human evolution 6 million years ago until within the last 10,000 years, for the first time, we began encountering strangers, and then we developed writing, and then we acquired.
That's so crazy to think about. Like, we're so, like, new as a society that, like, it's almost a blink of an eye when we're talking about, like, time and, you know, that we've actually been here on Earth. But to the fact that we've accomplished so much, the fact that, you know what I'm saying, we can live in an artificial, you know, building, and we can have all these electronics around us and all this stuff, and we've manipulated so much of our world around us. It's kind of crazy to think about. Like, we've accomplished a lot, you know.
And then we developed writing, and then we acquired kings. All of these things that we take for granted are a matter of the last 5,000, 10,000 years, or the internet, or the media. They're a matter of the last few decades.
The relative recency of weird societies and the speed with which information and knowledge increases means that not that long ago, we thought some pretty strange things. For instance, in 1903, the New York Times predicted that building a flying machine would be possible in 1 to 10 million years. Later, that very same year, the Wright brothers flew at Kitty Hawk.
If anything, I feel like they were just living off, or they were thinking off of, you know, obviously what they knew, but they didn't take into account that there's somebody who's a lot smarter who's going to do exactly what you think is impossible and get it done. That's why we have everything we have, you know what I'm saying? Because somebody thought to themselves, no, we can get it done, and they got it done. It's very foolish to think that. And
in 1908, it was said that no flying machine will ever fly from New York to Paris. Who made that foolish prediction? One of the Wright brothers. In 1962, the Decca Recording Company passed on a young rock band, saying, "We don't like their sound, and guitar music is on the way out." The band in question was the Beatles. Keith Moon and John Entwistle were said to have remarked about a band called the New Yardbirds. That band is so ill-conceived it will sink like a balloon or a zeppelin made out of lead. Well, Jimmy Page was not deterred. In fact, he took that phrase and made it his band's new name. He removed the A so it wouldn't.
I mean, you can tell that about a lot of different bands, though, because I know that happened to NWA, that whole gang of different whatchamacallits that, you know, they might have gotten looked past from a different, you know, from one, you know, kind of idiot, and got picked up by somebody who actually saw something in them and they were smart.
And made it his band's new name. He removed the A so it wouldn't be pronounced lead, and that's where we got Led Zeppelin. There is evidence the Nazis weren't entirely convinced Earth was a globe we lived on the outside of. Instead, they figured the Earth's continents were actually a lining on the inside of a hollow concave surface with the stars and moon and planets in the middle.
You can tell, obviously, they probably made this assumption just on the fact that nobody had been to space yet, for, like, at all. So, obviously, this is why they made such a weird assumption like that, but that's kind of weird that, I don't know.
Surface with the stars and moon and planets in the middle. seriously. As the story goes, Dr. Heinz Fisher was sent to Rugen Island to spy on the British. Now, the curvature of the Earth would have made this impossible, but thinking the Earth was shaped like this, they pointed their
You would think just pointing your telescope straight up would kind of defeat that, because obviously you don't. If you just look straight up or straight out, you're not going to see, the Earth. You're going to see stars. So, common sense would say, but
was shaped like this, they pointed their telescopes up at a 45-degree angle. Needless to say, the experiment didn't work. The Eiffel Tower's inauguration and the Wall Street Journal and Starry Night and Coca-Cola and Nintendo and Adolf Hitler all began in 1889, as did a guy named Thomas Midgley Jr.
I know who he is. Just before he said, I'm going to take a quick guess. That's the dude who, he did something with aerosols or something with gas or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember exactly what.
A guy named Thomas Midgley Jr. Celebrated in his time, Midgley's legacy has since been tarnished by the negative consequences of his inventions. His list of contributions to society is impressively disastrous. In the late 20s, Midgley synthesized the first chlorofluorocarbon, CFC, for which he won the Society of Chemical Industries Perkin Medal. Only later did we realize all of those tons of CFCs we were emitting were eating away for.
Yeah, I feel like that stuff hasn't even that didn't even begin to fix itself. It obviously hasn't fixed itself whatsoever, but it didn't even begin to fix itself until I went to the mid 2000s to mid 2010s almost. That's how destructive that was, and that dude died probably back in the 40s, 50s or something.
We were emitting, we're eating away 4% of our atmosphere's protective ozone layer every decade, like a virus, creating a wound unlikely to completely heal until me and you have long been dead. In the early 1920s, Midgley discovered that by adding tetraethyl lead to gasoline, engine knocking could be reduced. The American Chemical Society gave him the 1923 Nichols Medal for the discovery. There were other, safer alternatives, but General Motors jointly owned a patent on tetraethyl lead with Midgley. They could make a profit on it, so they advertised it as the best option. And almost immediately, nearly every motor vehicle on Earth.
I feel like that was in paint too, if I'm not mistaken too. That was a huge thing back in the day. It was a lot of lead-based paint.
Nearly every motor vehicle on Earth was spewing lead into our atmosphere and soil, which put it in our blood. Lead poisoning for decades. Currently, the reference for healthy children is a blood lead content of less than 5 micrograms per deciliter. After the popularization of Midgley's leaded gasoline, 88% of children in America had double that amount of lead in their blood. When leaded gasoline was finally phased out,
It's kind of crazy for so long, our government really did not care about us. Kind of crazy how the 20th century really was, all that, just such craziness, such ignorance.
gasoline was finally phased out in the 1970s, that percentage fell to 9%. Lead is a neurotoxin. Even light exposure, like that caused by Midgley's invention, can cause a decrease in intelligence and an increase in antisocial behavior. Fordham University found that in young adults, the best predictor of delinquent and violent behavior is literally the lead content of their blood. Chillingly, the rise and fall of violent crimes by juveniles in the 20th century tracks significantly closely with the rise and fall of lead in their blood when they were preschoolers all over the world. Historian J.R. McNeil remarked that Midgley had more impact on the atmosphere than any other single organism in Earth's.
And that's saying a lot, because you gotta think there's freaking oxygen causing organisms in the world, and this motherfucker had way more of a freaking impact than even they. That is ridiculous.
Other single organism in Earth's history. Midgley's final invention, was even worse. Well, for him. In 1940, he contracted polio. To help his friends and family lift him from bed, he designed an intricate system of ropes and pulleys. As was the story of his life, the invention seemed brilliant at first, but 4 years later, he became accidentally entangled in the ropes and his own invention.
If anything, that is just karma. If anything, I don't know what type of karma that is, but it has to be some type of karma.
Ropes and his own invention strangled him to death. Midgley's life took up 0.055% of human history.
His life took up that 0.500, and yet what he has caused will probably take up 10% of Earth's history. Like, that's crazy to think about, you know what I'm saying?
0.055% of human history. And roughly speaking, yours will too. To put that in perspective, let's time travel, starting right now. We begin 100,000 years ago, the beginning of modern humans. We are moving forward in time an entire millennia, 1,000 years every second. As you can see, not much is changing. Our modern world will briefly flash at the end. That's all it is. That's all it's been. So be careful not to miss it. And as always, thanks for watching.
So from that was the beginning of the Earth right there. This is us, I'm guessing, being cave dwellers and inventing fire and stuff like that. Every second is 1,000 years. That means that every second, for thousands of years, we were doing nothing, just surviving like animals. That's crazy to think about. At least now we're in societies, but it's like, damn, even this is not like, you know what I'm saying? We finally got to the Egyptians. That's crazy. And we're done. That's crazy to think about, just how fast that really is, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, really makes you think. I'll see you guys, thank you guys again for joining me on another episode of Mike's Intellectual Corner. I'll see you guys in another one. I'm out.